Well, good morning. Right, another week at Retropower. So, yeah, we'll have a little walk through and see what we've been up to. So, starting here at the entrance. Right, we've got a clutch and flywheel for Morris Minor, for the Z-Tech in that from Retro Ford. We have some wheels that are back from Powder Coat for the Cortina. We've got two sets. The fourth one of those is out there. They've been blasted, zinc metal sprayed, and powder coated. We may yet paint these as well, but that's a separate issue. But yeah, we zinc metal spray all the wheels just so no rust, all weather use. You can damage them, they won't rust. So yeah, we've got those. We'll be putting tyres on this set later on today, amongst the running around jobs of the day, so that next week, hopefully, all being well with a few things, we can get the car rolling. Onwards this way. We have an English axle that now has a brake conversion. We have managed to get a brake conversion of we've got 227mm diameter Fiesta discs and Sierra 4x4 type calipers, the usual fit to everything caliper, and I've done some brackets that enable us to get this lot under a Lotus steel wheel, which is always a bit of a problem. And we wanted the disc conversion, so that's now done. The brackets are being coated, so we've got to get that done before we can put it all back together, but basically that's done, other than terminating brake pipes and putting the caliper brackets on. The front struts are more or less built up. We had an issue with the seals, but we're resolving that, so that'll be dealt with on Monday. And then we have over here the engine and gearbox for the Cortina. On this one, the gearbox isn't being rebuilt. At customers' requests, gearbox isn't being rebuilt. We're just using it. We know it's a good gearbox. It's been tested in an MX-5. It was low mileage. It's just been cleaned up and going in. Not really our normal way of doing things, but that's how we're doing this one. Clutch is in, flywheel's on, starter motor's on, everything's together. The bit we're waiting for on this is the bit that lives here, which is the combined oil filter housing and engine mounting, which is currently being machined at Alitech Precision, and I'm just waiting to get that back. So hopefully we get that back next couple of days. That's the plan. Then that can go in there. James has been working on this and Trev's been working on this, battling a couple of areas we knew were going to be a bit of a battle from the dry build that we did, which wasn't a complete dry build, it was a sort of 90% dry build. We knew that there was an issue with getting a throttle cable away from the pedal box. The pedal box doesn't have a throttle cable provision on it. The aftermarket pedal box doesn't have that provision on it. Well, not for this application anyway. So we knew we needed to engineer a throttle linkage. We went through a couple of design ideas. We finalised what was the best idea in the end. James and Trev came up with a pretty good idea on that. So we went with that. We've engineered all that now. We've made the throttle pedal. We've dismantled the pedal box, re-engineered it, made a new pivot pin, made new bushes, put it all together, tried it, and then it's all been stripped down, the old powder coat stripped off, and that's just waiting paint now. And then the steering column, likewise, there's various combination of parts issues that mean that due to the modified steering column height and a few other changes, it doesn't all just go together. So we're working on that now, redoing the column shroud, redoing the brackets for the column shroud, changing the way the stalk fits slightly, and a few other bits and bobs on the steering column. So that's being worked on today. James will have that done today. Then we can get that painted as well. So yeah, that's where we're at with Cortina. But really, the biggie is we're waiting for this engine mount filter housing billet piece to come. Once that's here, engine and box can go in, axle can go in, and it can sit on some wheels. So that's the big step forward for this one, which will be next week, hopefully early next week, but it'll be next week at some point. Right. Moving on again. A few little jobs on the W111 Kaiser 2. Not huge amounts on this week, but we now have working electric window making, all there on Windows now. All there on Windows now on this, aren't we? Yeah, we now have working electric windows all round, switches that fit in door cards, switches that do the jobs, because the switches are operated by the original winder handles, but that's all now operational. It's been quite a trial, but it now all works, all looks correct, all fits the trim, everybody's happy, and it's a good result. So we've got there on that, and then Adam's just working on a bit of trim for the scuttle top on this now, doing a really fiddly little task with some lovely M2.5 screws. She's enjoying greatly, so we'll leave him quietly to carry on with that one, I think. We've got some bits here that were painted for the Cortina earlier in the week. They've got to be, I think there's a few little bits to nib out and whatever on those, but then obviously they're going to be fitted further down the line as we get the dash assembled, get the doors assembled and various other bits. Then we'll get through the remaining painted bits that we're waiting for. As I mentioned it earlier, the column shroud, which James has just over behind us, he's just literally about to start fettling that, I think now. He's bonded in some threaded inserts in with epoxy into that, so that we can reverse the way the whole column shroud mounts. So he's bonded in some threaded inserts. We're now actually mounting this upside down so that we get a full length shroud on top, reprofiling the outside of it, doing a few other changes to basically make it work with the longer steering column and various other changes that are inside the car. So that's a good result. That's worked out really well. So happy with that. I'll hand those bits back and leave him be to crack on. We'll wander through here and go and see where we're at in the metal shop. Scott's been working on the Morris nearly all week, doing various bits, all of which have been fairly awkward, as is the weeks we have at certain points. Working on the tubes for the front, which are going to carry the wing mounts. We had to do a bit of a change of design on the front suspension. What I'd hoped I was going to do, I can't do. I'd hoped I could do it using completely standard Mazda front strut units. I can't, or an aftermarket version thereof. I can't. The issue is that the standard Mazda front strut units end up in the standard Mazda front strut units end up in the line of the mounting for the inner wing. And much as I'd love to carry on with that route, I'm just creating too many problems for myself. So we decided that we're going to do away with that idea and use a different strut unit on the front, a coilover unit that I can mount slightly lower. Just alters the stroke very, very slightly, but it's more just that the bottom half of the shock is excessively long on the Mazda. And then we're going to then run tubes down which pick up the wing mounts, and tie the suspension into those tubes. It'll make sense when it's done, but it's just complicated the front end slightly more than I'd hoped, that's all. So dealing with that, and also Scott's made the pedal box mounts, or finished making the pedal box mounts, got those in, finished capping off, made some capping sections for the ends of the original parts of the Morris where they were cut off to take the front end mounting rail tubes that come up each side. Got those to go in, and yeah, he's made the centre section for the bulkhead, but there's a question on that. We've got to put a reinforcing pressing in that, so it's not in the car at the moment because we're trying to work out exactly what we're going to do in terms of pressing that. I've made a press tool. We're not quite sure whether it looks right or not, so we're holding fire on doing that. We've done a little. We were trying to pick up on the Morris steering wheel centre. I made a little press tool to do it. We're slightly concerned. We're not sure whether that looks right or not. So we'll make a decision on that next week. So that's the panel's ready to go in. It's just got to have some sort of reinforcement stamped into it. So it's not a major job either way because we can make the press tools very quickly on the CNC plasma. So it's not really a problem. But we're batting that one down the road to next week. Right. Moving on. We have the Mustang, which Stu has been forging ahead with at quite a rate, as you can see. Stu's in his element with this one. He has made serious progress, got inner wings now on A-posts largely repaired, I think. The scuttle's on. And then he's panelled up the front to get the alignment for the A-pillars. There's a couple of panels we're waiting for. No major delay, but we've got a slight wait on the firewall. Now, hopefully that should be here next week. And then he can get on with the firewall. He's made some extra attachments for the jig to hold the front of the sills in place so that the body shell doesn't splay when we take the firewall out. At that point, now he's got that mounted, he can take all that lot out, take the dash out. The scuttle top's temporarily put on, but he can take all that lot out. So basically there's a big hole between the engine bay and the passenger compartment, and replace the firewall, and then replace the sills and tie the new sills onto the ends of the new firewall, onto the A panels, tie it all together. Put the new A pillars in, which are also coming next week, and then the front end work's really getting quite well progressed at that point, and he'll be moving on to the whole floor structure, which is basically remove everything from the bottom and replace the whole lot. So it's quite nice to be working with, knowing that everything needs replacing. It's an interesting approach. But yeah, good progress on that. Really good progress this week. And moving on again, there's a couple of little bits and bobs through here. A lot of Gaz's work from the week, the body works kind of dotted around because his work earlier in the week was finishing the Cortina, which is now next door. He's been doing panel prep in here, nibbing and flatting panels. He's just got one door left there to finish off, and a pair of C-pillar trims that he's just nibbing at the moment. The body shell itself, we're going to nib out and flat later on. We're going to do that after we've nibbed and flatted the areas that we won't be able to access later, and then the rest of the body shell we're going to do later. So hopefully we can get away with only doing it once, rather than if we put any marks on it during assembly, having to go back to it. And then Utah's in here. That's at the same position as it was last week's walk around. That's about to start as soon as Gaz has got the last of the Cortina parts out of the way with, and one or two little infill, little painting random parts jobs done. Then he's going to be on to Utah in earnest, starting seam sealing and filler work on this. So that'll be nice to see progress. Just going back, the pedal box, the modified pedal box for the Cortina is here now, with a couple of modifications we've done to it. For the throttle, we've added various parts to it for the throttle, so that's there. The pedals are they're as they came. The pivot shaft's been modified for that. That's not here because that's not been painted. And then they're the rear caliper brackets, which we're painting as well for this, for the Cortina. So yeah, that's where we're at really. I think that's pretty much covered the week's progress. There we go.